Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So what I have for you today is a prize figure of Albedo from Season 4 of Overlord. Truth be told, I'm currently only in the middle of Season 2, hence I'm not really familiar with the outfit that Albedo has on and whether it's canon or not. But I couldn't resist getting this Taito Artist Masterpiece Plus or AMP Plus figure of Albedo, seeing how impressed I was with the Sakurajima Mai figure from the same product line. If you haven't watched that, I'll put a link to the video in the description below. So just who is Albedo? Well, she is the main love interest of the show's protagonist, Ain's old gown, who is trapped in a full-dive, massively multiplayer online role-playing game as the leader of all the NPCs in his guild HQ called the Great Tomb of Nazareth. Albedo is the NPC who is essentially the second in command of the guild. The front box art shows Albedo in an elegant yet revealing purple dress, which I presume is from Season 4. Here's the front and back views of the whole Albedo Taito AMP Plus figure. On the back, you have a close-up view of Albedo's voluptuous assets, although I don't remember them being so big in the anime. Yet another fairly close-up view of Albedo from a slightly bottom-up view. The gold logo at the front box art denotes that this is a artist masterpiece figure. Now we have a Kadokawa sticker which shows that this is an officially sanctioned figure. So anyway, let's go ahead to open and see what we have inside. As is standard for Taito's AMP Plus premium line, the figure inside is encased in not only plastic wrappings, but is also put between two plastic blisters. Such protection is needed because Taito AMP Plus figures are usually fairly intricate and its fragile parts are more susceptible to damage. Just from the box art alone, you can easily surmise that Albedo should exhibit a fair amount of intricacy in her build, especially with the many individual strands of hair and her huge pair of feathered wings as seen in the box art. Let's open up the blisters to see for ourselves if that's really the case. Directly around parts of the figure are pieces of plastic sheets wrapped around the individual parts, such as the bottom and upper half that makes up Albedo herself. It looks like she's made up of two separate parts, the upper half and bottom half. Then there's also the rather huge round base at the back that has an inmold color that mimics a lacquered mahogany finishing. Just let me remove it from the plastic so you can see what I mean. Taito AMP Plus bases range from intricately detailed to non-existent, and Albedo's base lies somewhere in between. But it's basically a simple round piece of plastic. It is its color that stands out. The wood-like color adds a certain je ne sais quoi to the overall look that complements Albedo's elegant dress. So that's the base that I was talking about. And that's not all actually, as we also have the pair of feather textured wings, each in their own plastic wrappings, which I am removing now. Their detail and complexity of design means they had to be molded as separate parts that is to be attached to Albedo's back, if I'm not mistaken, rather than molding it as part of the figure itself. Because molding both wings as part of a single whole together with the figure itself would have prevented such fine details on each individual feather from being sculpted well. Meanwhile, the rings actually feel rubbery to the touch, so I believe it will be very flexible during the assembly process. That's all of Albedo's parts laid out on the work mat. Let's go ahead and give each and everyone a good once-over. So it looks like Albedo herself comprises 4 parts, her 2 wings, her upper half and a lower half. We'll start with the upper half of Albedo herself, which comprises her arms, head and most of the torso. Apart from her painfully obvious assets, there's actually more to her upper half. Her long hair comprises many individual strands ranging from black to clear purple. Then you have her pair of shiny ivory horns, her likeness to the original anime or manga character, and also other little details like her gloved hands, the collar necklace, and that curly strand of hair sticking out of the top of her head. All this combined into a promising package. And while there's less going on with regard to her lower half, it's just her long, shapely legs exposed through the slits of her dress. It provides the basis through the slots and holes on the back of her waist for the attachment of a huge pair of wings. Now, Albedo's black feathered wings come molded in two large separate pieces, and both feel like soft plastic that's rubbery to the touch. The slim profile of Albedo's lower half now makes more sense, as the wings will be taking up most of their volume below the waist. Lastly, we have a large round base with a mahogany-like enamel color, which apart from the color is fairly basic for a Taito AMP Plus base. So in total, there will be 5 separate parts that will be making up the Taito AMP Plus Albedo Overlord 4 figure. Although the assembly process of prize figures are generally straightforward tasks that can be completed quickly, the Taito AMP Plus prize figures tend to be that little bit more complicated. At the very least, they have more fragile bits to account for, hence require more care when being put together. There being no assembly instructions, figuring out where to start isn't necessarily obvious. You wouldn't be faulted for thinking that the two halves of Albedo should come together first, but it's actually the attachment of both wings to her bottom half that should be the first step. This is because her hair will get in the way of the wing assembly if both halves are fixed together first. Fixing the wings onto her back is kind of idiot-proof in that the holes on the back and the pegs on the wings are uniquely shaped, so that it's unlikely you can attach the wrong wing on the wrong side. Even disregarding that, you should be able to tell which wings go where from the box art alone. Both wings are somewhat pliable, as they have a flexible, soft plastic, almost rubbery feel to them, which makes assembly comparatively less of a hassle compared to, say, hard plastic parts, especially when other fragile parts around her come in close proximity to the wings. Details on the wings stand out so much so that you can just about make out the veins and shaft of each individual feather on each wing. While the wings are molded in monotone black, they still look good due to their sheer size and presence. Of course, the miniature painter in me sees potential in further improving the wings' aesthetics, for example by giving them a wash of pink, purple or blue hues, thus contrasting against her purple dress. With the wings attached, you can get a sense of why Albedo's bottom half had such a slim profile in the first place. Such a profile actually contrasts well with the wings because the latter are the ones taking up most of the figure's footprint width-wise. In other words, taken as a whole, Albedo's lower half doesn't look as thin now with the wings attached onto her back. The square peg on her waist that my right hand fingers are currently resting on is the connection point that is to be inserted into the hole at the bottom of her upper half. Attaching both halves together is a simple enough process you see me doing here. Just be mindful when applying force to join the halves not to damage fragile parts such as the thin strands of her hair, the sash on her waist, or even the fingers on her hands. Especially also the connection points of both wings. All these you should be aware of. And with the aforementioned fragile parts in mind, I'm now just pushing both halves of Albedo together as tightly as I possibly can. I'm trying to ensure I've gotten both sections of her body fitted together as tightly as possible. So there you have it, the Taito AMP Plus Albedo prize figure assembled, almost fully with only the base yet to be attached. Let's just give the completed figure a once over before we attach the base. For Albedo, you can see that Taito clearly understood that there were two unique characteristics of this Overlord character that simply had to stand out. One was her horns, and Taito did an absolutely perfect job on them. They have a brilliant glossy finish that, coupled with the fitting enamel color, results in an accurate recreation of how ivory horns should look like in real life. Taken as a whole together with the unique way that strand of hair sticks out at the top of her head, as well as the accurately pre-painted face, what you have is a figure with an unerring likeness to the anime or manga drawing of the character. That likeness amplifies when you add the purple dress from Season 4 into the mix. It's another tick in the checklist of anime accuracy for the figure. Meanwhile, Albedo's long strands of hair are mainly molded in black, except for the ends which have been molded in clear plastic and painted with a clear purple paint. As for the second unique characteristic, it's none other than Albedo's pair of huge black wings. Now, as mentioned earlier, although the wings have been molded in a boring monotone black, Taito more than makes up for it with the exquisite detail on the feathers that make up both wings. That then is the Taito AMP Plus Albedo Overlord 4 prize figure, given a quick close-up look at the two key characteristics that make her unique and easily recognizable, i.e. her horns and wings. Now I'll be attaching Albedo onto her base. It's a simple process done via the pegs on her feet and the holes on the base. So let's just fast forward this final assembly step to the end. With Albedo securely attached onto the rather large flat round base, we can now move on to a full 360 degrees view of the Taito AMP Plus Albedo Overlord 4 pre-painted prize figure. Only by seeing Albedo in her entirety can one really appreciate the ambition Taito harbored in this Overlord figure's design and in their execution of it. Just in terms of complexity of design alone, this artist masterpiece figure does not look like it belongs in the prize figure category that it is classified as, due to the fact that it can be worn in crane games in Japanese arcades, as well as its price point in the aftermarket, which is equivalent to most prize figures. It looks more like a mid-tier figurine or an entry-level upper-tier scale painted figure. But certain characteristics like a lack of shading on her clothes, skin tone and wings remind us why it's still only a prize figure after all. But rather dwell on this Taito AMP Plus figure's imperfections, we should be celebrating Taito's attempt to, in their own words, well, I'm paraphrasing of course, to push the limits of prize figures. In the long run, this will bode well for the figure collecting community, either pushing prices down or increasing the general quality of pre-painted figures from the lowest to the highest tier. While a key feature of Taito AMP Plus figures lie in their elaborate bases, Albedo has a pretty basic one, although Taito did mold it in a mahogany-like hue to complement the elegant dress that she is wearing, in other words, to class up the figure. And in that, the base, however simple and limited it might be, does achieve its goal. In a way, the base simplicity is a good counterpoint to the figure that's already complicated. Notwithstanding the fact that Taito seems to have overemphasized Albedo's well-endowed assets, there's actually so much other excellent details on her upper half, starting with the iconic way that one strand of hair sticks up on her head, while another falls down her face between her eyes, which have been accurately painted yellow with kite-like irises. As for the rest of her ultra-long hair, it's played out behind her back, reaching all the way down below her waist. Meanwhile, her horns, which I have mentioned earlier, look fantastic in a glossy ivory finish. And while Albedo's skin tone and dress lack any paint shading whatsoever, the colors are pretty anime accurate, with her skin, hair, dress and gloves having a matte finish, with the sash looking glossy. Now there's another very nice little detail that Taito put in, which is Albedo's collar necklace, with its silver for the collar and violet for the gemstone on the necklace. For Albedo's lower half, the most prominent feature is of course her wings. They complement the slim profile and silhouette of her waist and legs, which actually arises out of her dress fashion, as well as the fact that she is posing with one leg stood in front of her and one to the back. Both wings fold inwards towards her feet, which have on a pair of glossy black high heels. Her legs are completely bare, and while they have the appropriate fair skin tone, they seem to lack any paint shading whatsoever. And while there's a light mole line running down her leg, it's only visible if seen up close. Her fair skin tone helps to hide the mole line. The wings themselves are brilliantly sculpted and are full of detail, which helps make up for their lack of hue variety. Albedo stands on a bare bones flat round base that just about redeems itself, directly by having an emo color that looks like mahogany wood, which accentuates the elegant dress Albedo has on, and indirectly by the fact that its minimalist nature contrasts well with the more complex design of the figure itself. Taito had intended to push the limits of what a prize figure can be with its Artist Masterpiece Plus line, and Albedo from Overlord 4 is a prime example of what they have been able to achieve with this lofty goal in mind. Putting aside obvious factors like paint job and the likeness of a figurine sculpture to its subject matter, to me, where the Taito AMP Plus line has pushed new boundaries is in increasing the level of complexity for prize figures in general. Let's take this Taito AMP Plus Albedo figure for example. Starting with her hair, which has been sculpted to look like they comprise of many individual strands. While other prize figures have successfully recreated this hair effect, Taito took it to another level by incorporating Albedo's iconic look of having that long strand of hair falling between her eyes and landing on her cleavage. But that's actually a case of not seeing the forest for the trees. While the detailed hair sculpt is all well and good, it's actually how each part of the figure sits in relation to others that makes its complexity so impressive. What most prize figures suffer from is that they have stiff, simple poses so as to enable the figure to be molded cost-effectively, which usually means the whole figure comes in just one piece, sans any meaningful accessories, and with its limbs fairly close to the body. In other words, a boring pose. How Taito AMP Plus figures differ in general is that in most cases, they don't look like they have been molded as one single freestanding piece, regardless of whether assembly is required. For example, in Albedo's case, her wings look the part of independent extensions from her body that in this pose happens to be enveloping her waist and legs. Her clothes too look like they are separate items being worn on top of each other, helped by the fact that each has a different finish to them. For example, the matte blouse, skirt and gloves versus the semi-gloss frills and sash. Where the figurine starts to remind us that it's just only a budget-friendly prize figure is in its paint job. While the colors used are realistic and beautiful, for example the glossy ivory of her horns, the silver of her necklace, the shiny blacks of her high heels, her matte fair skin tone, etc., they are unfortunately all in monotone hues. No paint shading seems to have been applied. Now this lack of shading is most obvious on her two large wings, however detailed they may be. Their look could of course be improved upon by using enamel washes, but straight out of the box, the wings are just a flat matte black. Also, the existence of mold lines suggests a lower level of quality control versus mid-tier or upper-tier scale painted figures. Now don't let these negatives distract you from the fact that this Taito AMP Plus Albedo prize figure is punching way above his weight class. For the price point of around 3,000 yen or more in the aftermarket, this figure offers so much more in return. Not only does it look incredible, it does so by projecting an impressive shelf presence due to its size and pose. I'm giving this Taito AMP Plus Albedo Overlord 4 figure a rating of Diamond or A rank. Albedo is going to look great on your display shelf with her wings and all. And if you are an Overlord fan, all the more reason to get her now. Well, that's it for this review of the Taito AMP Plus Albedo Overlord figure. I hope you have found the video useful and enjoyable. Please like the video if you did, and also please subscribe to my channel. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching. Take care and be well.